All right. Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday to you. Welcome to day 13. Welcome to day 13. It's good to have you around. If you are online, if you are connected, write connected in the chat box. Write connected. Let me know that you are there. Write connected if you are connected. Write connected if you are connected. Write connected if you are connected on our day 13. Day 13 0 bootcamp. Write connected if you are watching. Write connected live, like the live video. Write connected. Write connected. Write connected if you are watching. Write connected. Let me know that you are watching. Write connected if you are watching. Write connected. If you are watching, write connected. Let me know that you are watching. You are watching. If you are watching, write connected. So I'm seeing for one person, two person, who else that is there. If you are there, write connected. If you are there, write connected. Let me know that you are actually here with us. Let me know that you are actually watching on day 13. Day 13. Day 13. If you are here, write connected. Connected. Write connected if you are watching. I'm seeing three people. I'm seeing three people watching. I'm seeing three people watching. Write connected. Like the video if you are connected. Write connected 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 if you are connected. So without wasting time, we'll just go ahead. Yesterday we touched down on HTML, and the HTML we look at data presentation. For data presentation, we look at tables, and we look at list. We look at lists. We look at tables. We look at what I call controls, which is our form, inputs, input elements, and buttons. We took a look at all that yesterday. Today we will just go into CSS. I will not spend much time on CSS today, but we'll spend more time with JavaScript. We'll be introduced to JavaScript. So it's CSS, you can just read it up. You can read CSS up. So for CSS means cascade style sheet. CSS simply means cascade style sheet. Cascade style sheet. Cascade style sheet, which means that when we say something cascades, something overlaps, join together, a chain. So a chain of style, a chain of style is what CSS represents. That is our declarative command to beautify the web pages. If you look at the screens that we have been developing so far, they just look white. They look plain white. But we can begin to look at changing them. We can look at changing them. We can look in terms of background. We can look at background. The background, with background, you can use image, to form a background to something or a control. We look at background color. That is using solid color, for background. and then we have like height, we have like width, so we talk about height, we talk about width, right? And then we look at like cell spacing, cell padding, cell padding, then say pad left, pad right, pad right. We can just say top, left, right. If you are not seeing what I'm typing, just refresh your screen. You should be able to see that. If you are not seeing what I'm typing, just refresh, and you should be able to see that. So for the CSS, I'm talking about some of the control features that we can use, or declarative attributes. Attributes. So we have top, we have right, we have left, top, left, right, bottom. These are the attributes we can actually add to some of our control elements and things like that. There are some other layouts tags that I did not mention yesterday. Something like span, we'll take a look at that. Span, label, those are also useful in trying to control whatever thing we have. So having said that, let's quickly go and apply all this into a web page that we have. Let's apply this to the web pages that we have. So I'll probably start with let's see, please hold on. I'm going to change to, let's see what we can see on our browser, to know where we are. Okay, so let's see if we can Google Chrome. See whether you can see my home page, the Google Chrome, on your screen. If you can't see, maybe I have to refresh this. It looks like what we have is not okay. It's rendered now. Since it's rendered now, we can continue, and then I will change back. Let me change back to Visual Studio Code. I'll change back to Visual Studio Code so that you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's see. Maybe internet is a bit slow today. We don't know, but we should be able to see the Visual Studio Code. So we're able to see the Visual Studio Code now. Here, I talk about CSS, which is Cascade Style Sheet. It's a way, it's the declarative command to beautify our web pages. So here we have background, we have a background color, we have height, we have width, we have cell spacing, cell padding, pad left, pad right, and all that. So let's see how we can apply this. Go ahead and open, create another HTML document. Let's call it a css.html. css.html. So today we also look at the anchor and the link tags. We'll take a look at those anchor and link so we continue that way. Where are we? So let's just have this. If you can't create, you don't need to comment on that. Just listen. Create a new page. Let's call it css.html. css.html. So create css.html, and like we said before, to start a new HTML document, all you need to do is to have what? You start with HTML tag. Start with HTML, and then we have the header to our HTML, which is the head, right? So and then we have a title for our document. Here we'll just say, let's call it CSS Bootcamp. So that's our title, and so we'll leave it at that, and then we'll go into the body of our document. So we have the body, this, and then if there is any footer and things like that, we have the footer. So we have the css.html. Now that we have the css.html, let's create a button. In fact, let's create two buttons. A button that has black color, the one that has gray color, and the one that has a red color. So we call the black color subscribe. We will call the red one YouTube, and the gray one we'll call it chat me. So let's try and do those ones. So if you look at it, let's start with the button. Here you start with the button command. So we have button, and then the first button we are calling it subscribe, and then we'll create another button. Let's call it YouTube watch. YouTube watch, and then let's have another button, and then this button we'll call it what do we want to call that button? Let's see what is on our YouTube here. Maybe let's call it share. So this button we want to call it share. The share button, we want to make it look gray. The subscribe button, we want to make it look red, and then the other one we just want it to look gray. So now let's go ahead and save this file, and double click it. If you double click it, open it in your browser, the css.html. If you open it, you should be able to see these three buttons. Let's look at it. These three buttons, I'll project the buttons now. Let's look at it. So we have I'll go back to my Google Chrome, and if you check on your screen, you should be able to have the three buttons. the three buttons. With three buttons, the three buttons. If it's not showing, just refresh your browser. You should be able to see it showing on your screen. So you will see the subscribe, you will see YouTube watch, and you see the share button. So those are the three buttons that we have. Okay, on our document that we are working with, let's try and replicate. Let's try and replicate what we are seeing currently. Let's try and replicate what we are seeing on our video. On the video, you will see unlocking your coding superpower. That is the title, and then followed by buttons. We have subscribe, we have share, we have clip, we have save. So let's create those other buttons, and then you have another one. You have like a page under it where you have 5 watching now and started streaming 15 minutes ago. Then so we have join our coding bootcamp, like that. So let's try and replicate what we are seeing on the screen. We want to replicate what we are seeing on the screen currently. How do we do that? Let's go back to our document. Let's go back to our source code, which is the HTML, the CSS.html. Let's go back to it and add these stuffs that we want. So here, so just before the buttons, we have the title. Let's use for the title, we can use the h2 tag, which is the a bold one. So we have the h2 tag, which is the bold one, and here we are having unlocking your coding superpowers, unlocking your coding superpowers, day 13 of the code hero journey, right? So this is we'll try and check this one whether it reflects what we want. Then on a new line, we want to have some buttons like subscribed. So some buttons like subscribed. We want to have share. Next is share. Let's put share. And then next is clip. We have a clip. We have clip. And then what else? We have a save. Let's put it. And then watch. Let me just put YouTube. Okay, so we have this. We have this text and buttons, and the next is that it says 5 watching now, started streaming. So let's create a paragraph. Let's create a paragraph. Your paragraph tag starts with P, so we have a paragraph tag called P. So with this, in the paragraph we have what the first line is in bold, which means we use the B tag for bold, the B tag, and it's a 5 watching now, right? And then started 20 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago, right? So we can just leave it at that. And then the next line, so let's put a break to go to next line. let's put a break to go to next line. So if you have this, what else? We can have join our exciting journey, like that. Let me see. Join our exciting journey. Don't want to type. I'm trying to see if I can avoid typing. Okay, so just hold on briefly. Okay, so I'll just I'll put this there, right? Join our exciting journey, and then put a break so that we can have another one. So let's put 2 breaks here. 2 breaks. That means 2 breaks means 2 lines. Now, so if we have this now, we can continue with what we are doing. Right. So the idea is that we want to replicate something close to what we are seeing on the screen. So let's go back. And refresh our screen. If you have added all this, you can go back and refresh your screen. You should be able to see something like this. You should be able to see something like my own page, which I've just created now. Google Chrome. So if you go and select the CSS and you refresh, you should see this on my page. You should see this as it is on my page. You should also see unlocking code Bootcamp, unlocking code Superpower, day 13 of the code hero journey. You should be able to see that. Okay. So if you are seeing unlocking your code Superpower on your own CSS, just type scene so I know that you are following and you are seeing it. Type scene to know that you are following. Let's know that you are following. All right, so the next thing, we will go back and our subscribe button, we want to make it look, the subscribe button, we want to make it look black. Let's make it look black. The subscribe button, we want it to make it look black and the font to look white. So let's deal with that first. How do we do that? Is that we now apply CSS. We now apply CSS. Apply CSS in 2 ways. There's something we call inline CSS. Which is the first one we are going to do. Inline means that for each of those components, you add the CSS for them. So we are dealing with the subscribe button. We want to make it look black, isn't it? So the button tag, we will now add an attribute called style. So when you add style, it means that you want to, beautify the components. So style equals to, here we are going to make use of solid color, background color. So background color, I'm going to use black. Then the text that is displayed on the component is called the foreground. The color of the text that is displayed on a component is called foreground. The text that is colored it is the background. So the foreground, we are saying black, and the background color is black, and the foreground, which is also the same thing as color. We can just say color, font color equals to white. Let's see if you can find white. And then each statement is just like you write Java programming. Statement is terminated with semicolon. Then save this, and then so if you refresh again, you realize that the subscribe button is now black. If you do that, the subscribe button should now be looking black. It should 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 look in. Have you seen it? Okay, so the subscribe button is looking black. The YouTube button, we want to make it look red. Let's make it through the end of the CSS. Let's see. Let's see the end of the CSS. I'll change back to code. So the end of the CSS, this is it. Style. Should be able to display now. So style, background color is black, and then color, background color, you can see background color black, background color black, and then the color, which is the font color, is white. So that is the CSS. That is the CSS. So we are going to replicate the same thing for YouTube. The YouTube button, we want to make it red. So the difference between the subscribe button and the YouTube button is the background color. So here we can just say background color here is red, and then the front color is is white. So so if we do that, it means that we have changed the style. Now we have applied style to it to make it look to make it look white. So are we there? Are we there? So now that we have this, you can refresh your browser. You should be able to have let's see if you refresh your browser, and let's see what we have. Let's see what we have here. And I refresh. So if you refresh, you will see here that the YouTube button is red. The YouTube button is red, and the other buttons are gray. They are gray. The other ones are red. Okay. All right, so that's how it is to apply style. Let's do another thing. If you really look at original YouTube button, you look like it looks like, or if you look at the round if you look at the buttons, it looks like they are round somehow at the edge. If you look at the original YouTube content, you will see that the edge of the home button. So let's make the subscribe button and the YouTube button. Let's make the edge to look a bit round. How do we do that to make it round? Is that there is another CSS attribute called border radius. It's called border radius. So depending on the size you give it, is in pixel. Depending on the size you give it, that will determine how curved the edge will be. So let's try a border radius of 5px measured in pixel. So border radius, let's apply border radius in pixel. Border radius in pixel. Border radius in pixel. So if you go back to the code, you can use another tag called border radius. Border radius. Let's call it 5px, which is 5 pixel, which means that all the border corners will be changed to 5px. That should make it look a bit curvy, Let's make it look a bit curvy. So you save this, and then let's see what you will see. We have a background color, and then border radius. That's what I want to add. Border radius. So we have border radius of 5 pixel. Border radius of 5 pixel. So if you go back and check your web page, let's look at how it turns out to be. So we'll come back and then we'll refresh our screen. We should be able to see that the edge now looks a bit curved. You will see. Can you see the difference? Can you see the difference in the border radius? Can you see the difference in the border radius? You see that it's a bit curved. If we want to make it look curvier, we might increase the 5px to maybe like 10px or 7 pixel, right? Let's say this button, if you compare this button with the button that we have on the real YouTube page, you discover that those buttons look bigger than our own, isn't it? They look bigger than our own. So how can we can still increase the size of our own? So let's go back and increase the size. First, we can deal with the and say height. Let's look at adding height, and say the height is let's say the height is let's say the height is let's say the height is what I want to say now. Let's choose 50 pixel. let's use 50 pixels as the height, and so we will adjust it accordingly. Based on what we see on our screen. So let's adjust it, change it to if you refresh now, you will see that the buttons are now big. The buttons are now big. But even though they are big, the curve does not show well like the curve that we have seen before. So let's go ahead and change the curve from maybe 5px to 10px now. Let's go to the code. We'll change here to, let's change from, we have the height as this, and then the radius, let's say the radius to 10px. Let's say 10px. If you divide 50, the height is 50. So 50 divided by 2 is 25, isn't it? 50 divided by 2 is 25. Let's try 25px. Let's see what we get. 25px. 25px, and then let's refresh and see what we get. If it doesn't give us the desired results, we can keep changing it. So that's what we achieve by working on CSS. You can always test immediately. You can see now it almost looks like a circle now, so which means that if you want to create a circular button, you can create a button that has the same width and the same height. Do you get it? So here, this does not give us what we truly want. Do you understand? It doesn't give us what we truly want, because here you can see that the text are inside. It looks rounded. It looks very curvy, but at the same time, it still does not look as good as we may want. Do you get it now? It doesn't look as good as we may want. Maybe we can just change it back to 20 instead of 25. We can change it to 20. We can change it to 15. You understand? So we can play. You can keep playing, with that. You can keep playing with that. Let's say if you, let me see, let's do this. If you change here, you should see that it is now better. So we go back. Let's do more thing with the buttons. Let's say we want to have a fixed length for the button. We can actually do so by increasing the length, maybe from here, and say that the width, I say the width of the button here, say the width is 200 px for the subscribe, and then for the other one, the YouTube button, let's say is also 200. Let's say that way. If you use 200, How does it look like? If we refresh, we see how it comes out to be. If you refresh our screen, so you will see that it comes out differently. It comes out differently. The buttons now look wider. Do you get it now? The buttons now look wider. The button now look wider. The button looks wider. Now there are times that you want to use some characters that form the tags. Let's say for this YouTube now, we want to add like a play, play icon, and we don't have that icon. How do we create a play icon? We might just put angular bracket. You can just add angular brackets to the YouTube, maybe like this. In a way, this angular brackets, we can just say, let's do this. I will go back to the source code. So if you go back to the source code now, so we can say that for the YouTube, we want to add this arrow button to it. We want to add this arrow button to it. And if you do that and refresh, let's see what you get. But in some browsers, this might break. This might not make it look like what it's supposed to be. It might not look like that. So you just have, let's say we have this. Let me see how to get a pipe. Okay, let me just have a pipe like this. YouTube, then pipe like this, and then so let's say this, everything is in a bold tag. Let's say everything is h bold tag h2. Let's say h2 and put this inside h2. So you can begin to get creative with how you want to make use of style sheets. Now we have talked about height, we have talked about this, so, and then if you refresh this, on your browser, you should have something that looks like okay, this one is breaking it. Like I said, I will use b tag. If you use big tag, okay, so we use big tag because it's not an icon. We can get the icon later to make it really look like a play, a play button, so that is that. But I want to do a little bit play. Let's spend some more minutes with CSS. Okay, so you refresh, you have this. If you are not seeing what I'm seeing, just refresh your screen. Refresh your screen. You should be able to see this. This is not projecting. That's probably because of the slowness of the internet. Now, so we have the subscribe, we have the other button. But if you look at the original YouTube, how does it look like? It looks like a button, right? It looks like a button that has YouTube as the text. Can we think of how to implement that? Can we think of how to implement that? Can we think of it? So if you take a look at it very well, it looks like, okay, we have a button, a red button, and that red button has YouTube as text joined to it. So which means that the other one is not a button, but both of them form components. So let's attempt to do something close to it. Close to it. By the time you start practicing, you'll be more fluent in creating something neater. So let's look at the YouTube. For the YouTube, this is what we want. We just want a button. So which means that button, we only have the text, and then we will now have a text with it. The YouTube has text with it, and this text, let's put it in a tag. Now we can make it, this is where you use probably span. You can use a span tag. You understand? You can use a span tag, you can use a label, tag. Let's try and use even a bold tag itself, B tag, and send this B tag. This B tag is this. I hope I'm projecting. Yes. Okay, so we have the B tag. Now that we have the B tag, if you save this, you have just the button and the bold tag. So if we refresh our screen, we will see something like this. Of course, we'll probably have to remove the default. The width that we have changed. We have changed the width, right? So we can remove the width. Let's remove the width, and if we remove the width, what do we have? We have okay. I'll make this width. I'll make it 50px. Let's look at how 50px looks like with 10px radius. 50px with 10px radius for the YouTube. So if we go and refresh this, we should get something like this. So we get something like this, right? Now that we get something like this, but you realize that this YouTube is not the same thing as the one we have, because the height is not the same. The height of the text is not matching. It's not matching the height of the button. Do you get it? So it's not matching the height of the button. So what do? We need to increase the height here. That means the bold tag, we apply style sheet to it too. So the B tag here, let's add the same style sheet here. Here we'll say style equals to, let's say style equals to height 50px, height 50px, make the height 50px. Nice. 50px. Let me see whether it's line height. Let's try line height. Okay, line height 50px. That doesn't meet it. Okay, so let's try another thing. Instead of line height, let's try font weight. That is font size. So the font size, let's call it let's use 30. Let's use 30px. Let's see what we get with that. Good. So let's now increase that font size to 50. Let's increase the font size to 50. Let's increase the font size to 50. Change the font size to 50. Font size to 50. And that should give us, let's see what we have. Okay, YouTube. Okay, I'll try 40. I'll try 40. So I'll try 40, and this is what we have. Maybe we can just make this the height of this one also 40. Or 45. Let's see, 45. Okay, so let's leave at this one so we don't spend much time with that. But then we should be able to, if we change the font size now, font size of the button to the height of the button to 45, and the font size of the text to 40, we have something close to that. But if you look at your page, you will see that the YouTube itself, the logo has something like a trademark. Whether UK, English, SC for Sweden, we can actually add trademark to it. How do we add trademark? Is that the tag is called TM. If you want to add copy, there's a tag for copy. So let's add that before we move on. Let's add the trademark. Let's add the trademark tag. Where is it? Here. And trademark. I think it's called a trademark. I know there is copy. Or super. Maybe I think it's called super. I think it's called super. Let's check that. For trademarks, I'm trying to get that for us. trademarks, trademarks. So it's called and trade. So if we add trade to it, we should and trademark. Okay, that should be trademark. Then trademark will be there. So we see something like this as trademark. As trademark. So that's basic anyway. For CSS, we can deal with, we have padding, spacing, that you can just read up, read that up. For example, now let's say we have a chat box. In our chat box, we want to have a text feed. So let's quickly add a form to it. Let's quickly add a form to what we have to make it look like what we what we want to see. Let's look at that. Let's add a chat box. Let's add a chat box to what we have. So we want to add a chat box. We just want to have a text feed, one text feed, and then we will apply style sheet to that text feed with a button. So let's create a form. Let's create a form, and then in the form we want to add a text feed. And to add a text feed, we have input type equals to text, right? Input type is text. Of course, if you want email feed, you can set the input type to be, email. Let's say input type is text feed, and then we have the name of the text feed. Let's call it message. That's the input, and then we have a button. We have a button, and then for the button we have send. Let's just have send to the button. Now this form, if you take a look at it, you realize that it just looks very, very, very tiny. If you refresh, you see that we have a chat box. It's tiny, and the send box, but we want to increase it. We want to make it look more beautiful, the text feed. So what do? We want the font. Let's just say this text feed, we will say the font size. We can increase the font size of the text feed. We have 2 minutes more to spend on CSS. So 2 minutes more to spend on CSS, right? So let's say this is our form now. In the text feed, we want to add a style, and the style is that we want to make the font of the message we want to send, or the text feed, to look bigger than what it is. So we can say font size. Font size is let's say 24 px, and then we want to change the original font. To change the font name, let's change the font name. It's called font family. So we can use I want to use a Korean new for the font. Now there are times that when the font name is it has space, that is more than one word, you quote it with an apostrophe. And if you want to make your system to select, in case they don't have the font, the system does not have the font, you can default to another system, another font. So you can separate them by comma. You can separate them by comma. Refresh your screen if you are not projecting. So you refresh it by comma, and then so if I go back and refresh this, you will see that the text field is now bold. Okay, let's take a look at it. You realize that the text field is now bold. The text field is now bold, but our button is now what? Is now smaller. So if you type this is what I want to send, and you click send. Now this button itself, this button itself has nothing. All right, this button itself, is submitting. If you look at the address bar, it's submitting to there because we have not stated where it should submit to. Now, so this button, let's make it of the same height. So what do we do with the button? We can say that let's say we have style to it too. Style equals to, for the button, style equals to height 25px. Let's see whether 25px works. Or 40 for the button, or let's say I'll use 35. Okay, 35 looks more like it. 35 looks more like it of our button. Now I don't want it to submit because I don't want it to submit. I just made the button type to be type button. If you don't want it to submit, you can make the type of the button to be button, and here you can just say type equals to button. All right, so having said that, if we refresh again, we will see that this does not submit again. This does not submit again. So there is different way that you can begin to style. Now all this thing we are doing, imagine you have different pages, you will keep adding style to that, but it is wrong. It doesn't make you efficient. It doesn't make you efficient. Refresh your button, refresh your screen. If you can't see my VS Code, you need to refresh your screen. Refresh the page so that you can see. Refresh the page. All right. Yes, you can separate it from text area. Just put BR tag after the input, where the input ends. That would bring the button down. Yeah, if you want to add space, you can also add space to it. How do you add space? There is something called BSP between the button, between where the input ends and the button. You can put space, and that would be an BSP. That's space. NBSP rather. I think it's NBSP, yes, and NBSP, if you put an NBSP, that will result in space in between. If you go back and refresh your your page, you should see the difference. So if you replicate the NBSP, that will give you multiple spaces. So, but there is another way to also undo without using NBSP. You can use what we call a pad. If you use pad will create space. So pad left, pad top. As an assignment, I will ask you to take a look at that. So for your assignment on CSS assignment, create for the one that is having a Uber clone. Just look at your Uber app. If you look at your Uber app, you will see where you need to. You will see destination. You will see from, that is the pickup. So you have pickup and you put a text field there. You have destination, you put text field there that will allow for typing. Then have a button under it that says find driver. That is for you that is doing and I want the button to look black for Uber. The one that is doing, look at Fedora app. Look at Fedora app where you need to order for something. Just create a text field that says that you have a label like item, another text field for quantity, and then another button, place order. So I just want to see that simple form in our next class, right? So do it and push it to your code repository. I will look at it from there. So to finalize for CSS today, all we have done so far is called inline CSS. There is a better way to manage CSS, and you can create a separate file for the CSS and put all your CSS code in that. Then you import it. That's number one. Number two is that you can put all the CSS in the header of your file. And so once you do that, you can now reference it in your main body. So let's take a look at this. I want to move all the buttons now where we have put this. We will just call it, I'm going to move this. Okay, let's just use that as an example. So we'll close it for there so that I don't bug you with too many information. I think we spent 1 hour already, right? So let's end with CSS today and do the JavaScript tomorrow. If you want us to continue after CSS to touch your JavaScript, put vote JavaScript or CSS only. So type your choice in the there, CSS only or CSS for JavaScript. So we'll take a look at our CSS. We take a look at our CSS now, and yeah, I'm still waiting for your votes. I'm waiting for your votes. That will determine whether we are going to do JavaScript today or not. Otherwise, okay. Okay, so let's put a wrap on CSS for today. So I will look at this, the first tag that we have, we just go to the tag, and then in the header we can have something that is called style. So you have another tag called style in the header, then put this there. I hope we are seeing what I'm doing. So now, because we are using inline before and we are moving it from inline, just like you write Java code, you have a class that does a particular thing. So CSS also has class. So how do you write class in CSS? Let's say we have a class that we are going to call subscribe. The name of the class is called subscribe. So I will just say dot. Dot means class. Then I write subscribe. Now, then you put curly brace as you normally write your code. Curly brace and this. So if you look at it, subscribe, I have this, and then I end it with this. That means we have written a class. You understand? So this is a class that contains these codes. You can put them in the new line now. Just like you write code in Java. You understand? Here, so you have dot subscribe, means that there's a class name called subscribe, and then you open the bracket code, and the rest code will not be here. So that's how to write class in CSS. Now where you need it, now instead of calling style, instead of putting style here, we will now use the class directly. So you change style to class now, and then you will reference the name of the class. Of course, this is not like a Java that you have to instantiate. You just put the name of the class, and the class is called subscribe. Can you see? So we have in our style, we have subscribe. Dot subscribe means that this is a class. We are defining a class called subscribe. Now, if you like create several buttons, as long as you attach a class subscribe to it, everything will appear to those buttons. So we will come here, and then we have button class and call it subscribe. Do you get it now? I'm going to, just for us to test, I'm going to create another button here. I'm going to create a button below, and I say, okay, this button, I will call it button type equals to button, and then class is subscribe again, subscribe, and then but here second subscription button. Let's look at it now. So we have subscribe. So we have removed all this now. We have removed all this. Then the subscribe button, the background is black, isn't it? So for every button that the background is black, that you want the background to be black and big, we just attach a class. You see that this has now reduced code duplication. Instead of writing all this on the elements, we have removed it to a class. So even if you have several pages and you need the same button to look alike, just keep calling the class, and then to apply it to the button. So if we refresh our page, this is what we're going to see. Google. So look at your page, look at your screen, you realize that it will have changed to this, even though that the text is different or what they want to do are different, but because I applied the same class, you know that they look alike. So if you like create hundreds of these, you will not need to write their style sheets differently. You just add class to it. So that is how it has been done. So for example, now let's create another class. The class that I want to create is that anywhere we have a paragraph, we want that paragraph to be gray. We want the background of that to be gray. So let's take a look at it. Now, there are two ways to do it. You can have a class. The class is the most effective one, or you can call the tag directly. Now let's look at, we have seen an example of how to use class. This is class. What about tag? If I want to use a particular tag, for example, say tag P, that anywhere you use P, this is what should happen. Anywhere we are using a paragraph tag, then it should just say background color gray. Now I'll be using color words. There are times that you just need to use the color code. For example, the color code for most HTML are 6 hexadecimal characters, like FFFF in 6 places means white. You understand? So we use C. What does that give us? That should give us something like a gray. So if you look at it now, with what I've done here, we have a class called subscribe. Then instead of creating another class, I'm saying that any occurrence of P tag should be made, the background should be gray. The background of any occurrence of this should be gray. So what does that comes to? What does that come to is we can go ahead and refresh. Let's refresh. Let's refresh our screen and see what we have. Refresh your screen, refresh it. If you refresh, you will realize that the text where we put the text description looks gray. They looks very like a gray, like what we actually have in YouTube. Okay, now I want to do something again. The text, the display, that passage, that paragraph, I want the edge of the paragraph to look a bit curvy, rounded. So let's go and add the rounded stuff to it. Let's make it round. We already know how to make things round by using what? By using the border radius. So let's go ahead and add border radius. Let's add border radius. So we have here border radius, and the border radius this is 10px. Border radius 10px, and then let's go back and refresh our screen. Let's go back and refresh our screen. Let's go back and refresh our screen. So if you look at it, you will realize that the border now has changed and is looking better. it has changed and is looking better. Check it out. You will see the gray background, the border is looking better because we made it look curvy. All right, so make it look curvy. So that is it. That's applying that's applying classes, that's applying to specific tag. If you want to do a specific tag, as an assignment, you will take a copy of what we have done, where I have put an inline style, convert it to class and reference the class. Do you get it? So you reference the class. All right, now let's move to JavaScript. Let's move to JavaScript. We have like 39 minutes for JavaScript. We'll start the basic one today. We'll start the basic from JavaScript. Thank you so far. Thank you for joining. Thank you for watching. Thank you for staying cool. We are still on day 13 of unlocking your code in the Superpowers. We believe that at the end of this bootcamp, you should be ready to take jobs, remote job, take interviews, and all that in a way. After today, we'll switch back to backend. So we write a server base and then connect to backend databases before we return to the front end. So for the front end, we are looking at JavaScript. JavaScript is a dynamic language for writing front end webs, in a sense that it allows you to make your front end more dynamic. 6 people are watching, but I'm seeing 4 likes. If you have not liked the video, please like it as you are watching. As you are watching, please like. Let's like. So we are dealing with JavaScript. Even though it's called JavaScript, it has nothing to do with Java that we know. JavaScript was, I think it was created by Netscape. That was a popular browser in those days called Netscape. I don't know if they are the one that became Firefox at the end of the day, Mozilla. So, but it was written by one of these browsers vendors to be able to interact more natively with the web. So we look at JavaScript fundamentals. Unlike Java, where you have where you need to compile. For JavaScript, you don't need to compile. That is why it is more of an interpreted language than a compiled language. So, but the syntax also is close to Java in a way. It's close to Java and it runs in the browser. Although the modern JavaScript can also run backend now using VS engine. So when we get there, we write some Node.js application in the backend using pure JavaScript to do front end and back end. But for now, we'll focus on JavaScript as front end. There are also other frameworks like the web pages we are designing now. Some of them can actually be quickly designed with some frameworks that come inbuilt with those components. But those components are written in JavaScript. So that's why you need to know and understand JavaScript. So that is one. Number two is that JavaScript is single-threaded. Single-threaded. What that means is that unlike backend program that has threads of which you can run multiple instances, you can't do that with JavaScript. It's only one instance that runs at a time. That's why it is called single-threaded, and it's more of an event-driven application. You can also treat JavaScript as what we call a functional programming language. When we get to things like destructors, I will explain that to us. So having said that, JavaScript files are like CSS. Like the CSS we did the other time, we first wrote inline, isn't it? So we will look at inline. We will look at inline JavaScript, inline, and then we have JavaScript within the JavaScript tag, which is called I think it's called code. So we'll take a look at that, and then we can actually save JavaScript to its own file. Anything in .js can be saved in a .js file. Do you get it now? So .js file. So let's look at JavaScript fundamentals. Fundamentals. One, collections. Number one is that the same operation. In fact, in most programming languages, you have the same arithmetic operations. So the plus in Java is the same plus in JavaScript and all that. The minus is the same thing what they do, subtraction, right? The asterisk stands for multiplication. The what else? Those are the basic ones, you understand, for operations. So for arithmetic operations, for your logical operation, you have a double pipe. Arithmetic operation, we have double pipe. That is all operation. So it's the same thing like what we have done in Java. However, what is different is how we do our iterations. So we look at iterations, or start with, we look at variables, we look at iterations, we look at functions and the structures. So when during this, we also talk about collections, even though it's not called collections in JavaScript and things like that. But here we'll be taking a look at we can look at things like map, arrays. You understand? Even sets and things like that. So, but disruption. Okay, so that is it. To define any variable, you use let command. When you have a variable that is whether that is going to change, that you're going to assign value, for example, let name equals to Festus. Let name equals to, say, Festus. This means that this variable name can change. You understand? And then I can say that name equals to Tony. I'm still using the same variable name that I've declared earlier on. You understand? The same variable name that I've used before. But to declare constant, then you use the const, you call it const. So if I say const name, say name or city, equals to, or say constant pi. What is pi? 3.142, right? So I can say pi is 3.142, which means that pi can never change. So you use const for anything that will not change, constant. You use let for a variable that we change, but not in every given instance. So, and then I think JavaScript favors objects. JavaScript favors object. How do you create object? Object is so easy to create in JavaScript. That's what we have what we call JavaScript object notation. JavaScript object notation, JSON. This creates a name pair. It creates a name pair, but you can have several name pair in the same name pair. So that is why it's called a JavaScript object notation. So to create any object now, we can say, okay, let's say a shape now. Let's shape equals to, then you start with a bracket, curly brace bracket. I hope we are seeing it. Curly brace bracket, and I say that a shape has height, right? Let's say height 24. Let's say area of the shape equals to whatever. This is just like, this is a shape. We say this is a shape. We can have another one, say student. We can say student. What are the properties of the student? Let's say a student will have number, matric number, right? I will just say ID, say 1, matric. Let's say the matric is a string. For string, you call string 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's say that's matric. Let's say we have address, comma address. You can see this. That will tell us address. Okay, 1 caching. Lane. Okay, so let's just put it like that. So that is an object, and then you can begin to reference this object by just using dots on the name. You understand? Not necessarily a getter or setter and things like that. So the same calculation, we can say let's sum equals to A plus B, and then we declare what A and B is, isn't it? So we can say A. Again, you don't necessarily have to state the data type. JavaScript will infer from doing the operation what the data type is. So, for example, if you say shape is this, it will use this as the shape data type. This one, like pi equals 3.1.2, it will, because it carries decimal, it will call it float. You understand? So what are the data types? So we can have floats here. We can have a number. We can have a float. Both number and float belong to the same type, even though float contains decimal, decimal points. So and then string, you don't actually say that it's of type string, except when we get to TypeScript, then we look at that. Those are basically the things that you do with JavaScript. Now, so having said that, let's let's write small code. Here you have arrays, right? In JavaScript, arrays are defined by the same kind of, even though you don't have to specify what data types. For example, let students, in Java we created a student class, and then we have like a students factory that creates students here. So let's say students equals to this array. This way we have just instantiated array of students. You can see let students equals to this. We have just instantiated an array. Then you can now put stuff into the array. I can say to this array, unlike in Java, what do you do to array? You have array at any index this, or if you are using array list, then you have the dot add, isn't it? But for students, for in JavaScript, what you just do is that you just say, okay, we can say students dot push. You push into an array. You understand? You do a push into array. Students. We have a student object that we declared before. So not to waste time, let's create a file called students.js. So we'll use that to test through our JavaScript. We'll use that to test through our JavaScript. So we have 23 minutes to go. So let's go ahead and create a file called students.js inside our web students.js. In fact, let's call it let me see how we no, let's do it this way. Let's have students.html. No, let's leave it as students.js. So in student.js, let's have our students. I'll just copy what we have done before. We have declared one student here, isn't it? So I'll bring that into this. So we have students. Let's see, does this complete? Yeah, I see. Does it complete? So we have student. Let student is this, and we also have array of students. Which is this, but I think let's start this way. Let's declare the array and then declare the student. Let student is this, and then we'll push student to that. So let's add another student. We can also add without necessarily having to put it in a variable name. You can also do students dot push and then put a new record, say id2 81 and then 13 Filovas got on. So you had this. Now, so that is it. Then the next thing is that we have system.out.println in Java. So if you want to print to the console, we can just write console console.log. When you use console.log, that's you are printing something to the stream. So we can just say students, then comma students. I want to print out the students without iterating to them. I want to print out the whole collection. The console.log in JavaScript can actually print everything out without writing, as a printer method. Now let's test this. Let's test what we have just done so far. We will create another file. Are you with me? So let's create another file called student.html. 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 Of course, we have HTML, and then you have head, right? Here, and the head we have title, and the title, let's call it student database. Now we'll now have another thing here. I'll call this script. I'll call it script. Then the type of the script is a JavaScript. So we'll call it text/JavaScript. Text/JavaScript. Right. Now you can either put our code in this block, or we can do a link and then say src. In Java, when you write a code and you want to use it at that class, you use the import keyword. But here you use src equals to students.js. So what we are simply saying is that in this document, we are making use of a JavaScript file that we have written called students. So you automatically import it to this project. Then we have the body. We have the body. So here, now there is nothing else that we want to do. We just try to import the class, and there we'll see what's happened. So we'll just put, I'll just say h1 students database. All right, and then so you can go ahead and let's access our student database. Students.html. So if you are following what I have done so far on your screen, you will be able to see student database, but the JavaScript is not showing anything. We have imported the JavaScript, but it is not showing. Why? Because is still not interacting with the front end, components as it is. But we can actually check whether our JavaScript is actually working or not. So right click on your page. Right click on your page. You go to page source. Is it page source or inspect? Go to inspect. When you go to inspect, then you will see console. Click on console. Click on console, and if you look at it, you will now see that our JavaScript code is actually wrong. There is an error, with our JavaScript code. It says uncut error student.push. Student.push is not a function. Yes, it was correct. Why? Because we declare students array, and then we have student objects. So there was an error in our code. Let's fix that. There's an error in our code. Let's fix that. So if we come back to this, if we go to students, this is it. We have students is the array. We have student as an object. So we are pushing into the array, which is students. We are pushing into the array students, and then we are printing out students. So if you do this and you go back to our web page, let's see. If you go back to the web page, you should be able to see the new update. You can see that there is no error again. You can see that there is no error again. And if you click on the student, you will see the details. You will see student 1. You will see that it's printed. Student 2 ID is printed. So it tells you that this is what we have. Yeah. Do we get it now? So now that we have the students, we can iterate through each student. If we go back to the code, let's say we have the function called add, and say add, and then the add, we have we have 11 minutes to go. So let's say we have the function add, and this add, like we did before, let's say we need the matrix, we need the name, we need the address. Unlike Java, you don't need to say the data type and things like that. You just put it straight. So you just in JavaScript, to have you write function. The function like a methods where you have public void, this public this in Java, but in JavaScript you call it function. You use function, and then you have add, and then whatever thing you want to do, you can do with that. So we have a global variable and a private variable. Any variable that is declared outside the function is the global variable. Anyone that is declared inside the function is internal variable, just like you have internal variable to a class. So with this one that I have matrix, I can see push to the student. All I need to do is to create another object. So in this add method, I can say students dot push I'll give you another trick now. Student dot push. If you look at student dot push in line 4, we have this where we have ID and things like that. So this time around, I can say that ID is 3. No, student dot push. We have to create an object by putting it in curly braces. That's created an object. Then I can say ID is 3. And then I can say name is this name variable, address is this address variable, but I may not need to repeat that since it is the same name and the same the address and the name share the same attributes. Since they share the same attributes, I'll just have matrix so I will not need to just say matrix equals to matrix. Instead of doing that repetition, because it's the same attribute name, I just put the name like that. JavaScript will resolve it to the attribute name. But if the value that is coming and the variable name is different, then we can say we can pass it. For example, let's say instead of matrix now, I call it student number. Let's say this is student number. That means I can have matrix and pass the value student number to it. Student number. We can see the end of the code. Matrix student number. That is how to add. So this way I can add and say, so that's a function. So what about function to print the student? Just like we have before, this time around we can now say, okay, let's add a method to print function print student. Here we can just say console.log students. Or if we want to do like we iterate through, there are different ways to iterate. We can use for loop, regular for loop. In Java you ask for integer s equals to 0, s less than 1, and this using the range. Here you can also say for let x equals to 0, x less than students dot length x plus plus. Then we can say console.log here I can say name. You see that this one will be different from the one that we just printed. Name, so we can say students of x dot name. So we can access students dot name, say the name, let's say plus let's say student's name. After student name, what else? Let's say address. We can have address, and then students. Students of X dot address. So this is one way. Another way, we can use for each. There's a method called for each for functional programming. So I can say students dot for each. Then in the for each means that each element, let's call S represents students. For functional program, it maps to this. So now when you use functional program, I'll probably treat that in our next class so that I don't bug us with too many detail. So here I can say console.log. I'll just do the same thing here. Now here, this will now be S, which is the student. This is S, which is the student. So there's two different ways. You can see this one is cleaner. It's a one-liner. When you use dot for each takes from the collection and each item in the collection. Here, S represents each item. And then you can now reference s.name, s.address, or you can call the student, but because we have declared the student object, I don't want us to have a clash of names. So here, after you have done this, I can just say add. We can call the method add below, add student, right? Okay, add. Let's say this time around the student number is 15000, and then the name is gender, and then the address is Kokosari Avenue, right? Then next is that let's go print student. Okay, so we have 3 minutes to go. So let's looking at this, we can go ahead and test again. So like if we're in Java now, we'll have written a main method, and then the main method call the class, instantiate the class, and call the class method. But with JavaScript, it's as simple as this. Then we can go back and check what we have done. Let's go and check what we have done. So if you go back and you refresh this, okay, we have an error. It says student.push is not a function. I think I still make that mistake. Where is it? Okay, in our add method. So make sure your add. So if you look at it, you see now that we can print the student details. And name is undefined. If you take a look at it, name is undefined. So we can look at our student data. Okay, for the student there was no name actually. We only have matric. So instead of name, I'll put matric. So instead of name, let's change it to matric, since name is not part of the attribute of the student that we have. So we will have matrix. The add, okay, the add has name. If the add has name, okay. So what we have done so far is actually correct. So let's leave that. Some don't have name, some have a name. So we'll leave it that way. So where the one that does not have name gets undefined as the attribute. This is where we are going to end for today. In our next class, let's do what we call event programming now. So we want to attach our JavaScript to the front end. So we want to capture input. We want to work on the input. We want to do alert, send a message to somebody on the screen. So let's look at how to make our buttons to work. Let's look at how to make our buttons to talk back to us. That's what we're doing in day 14. And if we have time, we'll go to backend. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'll see you again for day 14. Thank you and bye-bye.